Shara Achzariyut. So he says, Tzarich liot achzari al reshaim. But you have to be cruel to the wicked. Shelo lerachem alehem. Not to be merciful on them. As the sages tell us, Mi shenase nasa rachman b'makom achzari, lasof nasa achzari b'makom rachman. Kohelet Rabbah, the Midrash and Kohelet says that whoever is merciful when he's supposed to be cruel, ultimately will be cruel when he's supposed to be merciful. You know, a lot of people, they change their mind about, in Israel they used to have a big debate about should we allow certain nations to live close by and not live close by. You know, at one point we even kicked out Jews to give space to other nations to live amongst us, and now they regret it. October 7 happened. A lot of people changed their mind. Instead of being Rahman, 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 in the end they were Achzari and their own people. In the end they were Achzari and their own people. Yeah. So the sages say, if you're cruel, you're not cruel where you're supposed to be cruel. You allow the evil to continue. So it's gonna come to bite you. It's gonna come to bite you. And people you were supposed to be merciful on, you're gonna have to be cruel to at the end. Exactly. So he says, "Netechem timtza b'Shaul HaMelech, b'shvil sherechem al Agag, yatsa mimeno Haman." Right? He was supposed to kill Agag. He didn't kill Agag. He had mercy on him. In the end, what happened? He came out of Haman, and it ended up being that Haman was cruel to all the people of Shushan, all the Jewish people of the world. Gam ya'adam achzar gufo. Sometimes you have to be cruel on your body. I didn't sleep enough this morning. But what? I have to be cruel to myself, okay? Because I have to go and take care of my neshama. By being cruel in my body, I'm being merciful to my soul. If I be cruel to my soul, that's being merciful to my body, but cruel to my soul. How can I be cruel to my soul? Yeah, I want to sleep more, but that's being merciful to my body, cruel to my soul. He says, להיות חיי צער, לעסוק בתורה, לקיים מצוות, right? אף אם הדבר כבד עליו מאוד, right? He says a person has to push his יצרה to go and to allow himself to go and learn Torah and do mitzvot, even if it feels very heavy sometimes. ולא יהיה אכזרי על עצמו יותר מדי. He says, however, you can't be too much אכזרי on your body. If you need a vacation, you need a vacation. Person who doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, is all the time sigufim, and he's not ready for this, he could go and he could fall down, he could crack, and then he's not going to do any mitzvot. You have to always find the right balance. He says, a lot of times we have misplaced cruelty. Sometimes we're cruel on people we're supposed to be merciful to, and number one, that's the poor people. The poor people, the people who are it says the almana and the yatom, right? The widow and the orphan. But that doesn't mean only the widow and orphan. Any person who's in a mitzukah, any person who's in a distress, a very hard situation, many poskim say he has a status of yatom almana. He has a status of a widow or orphan. You have to help him. You can't say, go to work like I go to work. Go figure it out. A lot of people have bitachon and emunah for other people. Guy comes to him and says, give me parnasah, can you give me tzedakah? Hashem yazor, al tidag, Hashem yazor. He says, he comes next day, you see his face on the floor. He says, what happened? Business, alapanim, this. Yesterday, Efo Hashem yazor. Yesterday you said Hashem yazor. Today, no more Hashem yazor. No more Hashem will help. The person has to be careful not to be cruel to those people. And he says, don't give your glory to others and yours to the cruel one. You have to guard yourself from revenge. He says, if you want to be merciful to your children and give them kavod, he says, you have to make sure, תעסוק בתורה מצוות מעשים טובים, זה הדבר כבוד גדול להם, וטוב להם מאוד, שיתכבדו בך ולא יישאו עליך חרפה. Because a lot of times people, they think they have to run for the kids, and then they have to do for the kids, and then what? They don't learn, they don't pray. And Chaz v'Shalom, you're doing bigger disservice to your son. Why? Because if your son would see you learn, and you be an example for him, and you would learn and get knowledge, and that way you can raise them higher and to be more of an upstanding individual and more of a Torah individual, the bigger service you're doing for them. It's better, yes, obviously you have to be home and help sometimes, but the fact that you come home with knowledge, you come home with holiness, and you give it to your family, that's the biggest kavod for them. It's not the biggest kavod to stay home with them. So therefore, A person has to push himself to try to think greater, that really I'm honoring them by bringing myself a better person for him. He says, the biggest shame for a person is that his relatives or his parents are wicked. And therefore, if a person, his father is ganav, gazlan, avara, averot mefursamot, megunot b'nei olam, let's say, God forbid, his father is a thief, a robber, he does very big sins that everybody hates, right? Kol hazaro meguneh acharav ledorei dorot. Now everybody knows that, in Hebrew, there's a curse that people give each other today. The son of a zonah. That's what they kill. That's what they call people today. You curse somebody like that, right? Yeah. How is that? That's the biggest curse you can give to somebody. That because his father is this, you're also this. So how do people get married today? Oh, his father's this, he's probably like this also. So therefore, a person has to know the biggest kavod you can give to your parents, your children, is that you're an upstanding individual, and therefore they get honor because of that. If you're the opposite of shalom, you're bringing the biggest curse to your family. When you do sins, they get the father. What? Yeah, exactly. He says, for example, there's no one more merciful to his children than the righteous man. Why? Because his mitzvot, he says, ki zchuto omedet le'elef dor. Right? There's concept zchut avot. What's zchut avot? The kids get, even though the father is not here, the zchut of the father is here. So therefore, look at Avraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, Yitzchak and Yaakov, David and Shlomo, all of their merits. Till this day, we're still getting this zchut avot. So you see that because they pushed themselves to do mitzvot and Torah, and obviously they were family men, but the biggest zechut they gave to the kids is not just physical inheritance, spiritual inheritance of all the zechut that they had, for they will stand for them in the time of need. He says, therefore, really the people who are the most cruel, he says, first of all, a person who was merciful, you need to be like Hashem. When you do mitzvot, you become more and more like Hashem. It's easier to be more merciful and to do the right thing when you do mitzvot. When you do averot, it makes you more and more achzari. When it makes you more and more cruel, you become more coarse, less sensitive, more selfish when you're doing averot. He says, so therefore, the person who does averot is the most selfish. And more than that, he gives a lot of curse, Chas v'shalom, to his family or to people around, or the Rasha, or the Shechino. So you're being really cruel with everybody around you when you're doing averot, right? Because there's after effects. It's not just you bring yourself down. It's like the big boat, the guy's in the room, he's drilling the hole. Then what are you doing? You're going to make me sink the boat. It's my room, I can do whatever I want. No, you're bringing everybody down with you. So therefore he says he's the most achzari. As it says, Ki ba'avon sinat chinam nichrab bait sheni. V'chol puraniyot ba'ot le'olam b'shvil averot. He says, because all of the calamities that come to the world is because of sins. And who are those sins? Those selfish people. As the Gemara says, Be'avon chala en bracha bemuchnas. Chala. They don't separate chala. There's no blessing in the storehouse. Be'avon bitut trumot masrot shamayim ne'esarim. Because there's no truman maaser, the rains don't come down. So you see all these things. Averot is what causes achzariut in the whole world. The whole country doesn't have rain. The whole country doesn't have. They put grain in the storage house. It's all rotten. It's all not usable. Why? Because the averot the people did. He says they're cruel to them children. They're cruel to the people of the generation. And the opposite, the people who are good or righteous, they're merciful to everybody around them. As it says, B'chol ha'olam nizon b'zchut Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Right, what the whole world was zucheh in that moment to have parnasah and to have mezonot only b'zchut Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. He was worthy. He was tzaddik yisod olam. So therefore what? Therefore you see that the person who does mitzvot and is righteous, he's the biggest, he's the most merciful on everybody. And therefore he says that this is the tshuva le'anim. A lot of poor people, they have a question. We don't have money to give tzedakah, so what should we do? He says you can give tzedakah to do maasim tovim. He says when you do a mitzvah or you do a tefillah for the sake of your friend, you bring bracha for your friend also. Tov le'tzadik and tov le'shcheno. So therefore you don't think you can only give tzedakah. You can give another bracha. You can give him a bracha. You can do tefillah. And you could do a mitzvah, l'schut your community, l'schut your people around you. As the Gemara says, he who gives a little bit of tzedakah, right? He says, "Tzadikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu metiv le'olam mefarnasam." Yesh tzedakah megdal mizot. He says, "V'yeh scharo kaful mechupal ki me'ad mishelo chashuv kmo arbe shel ha'ashir." Chad amarbe, chad ma'amid, bilvad sheyichaven libor shem shamayim. He says, a Person can't think, oh, because I didn't give a lot of money, so my tzedakah is not worth anything. The fact that you don't have and you still gave, or you don't have time and you gave time, you don't have money, you gave money, you don't really have the ability to do a mitzvah, you push yourself to do a mitzvah for the sake of your friend, all these things, Hashem considers it much bigger than the amount of money that the big donors gave. Much bigger than the people who sit and learn all day. Why? Because you didn't have time and you gave anyway. You didn't have money, you gave anyway. He says, as long as you're mechaven Hashem shamayim, it's the same in Hashem's eyes. Baruch Me'olam.